one of the things I want to ask you is how to make a sustainable career out of this. You got to do all these things nowadays as an artist versus, like a full-time DJ or a full-time producer. Like, what's your advice with that?
I think if you want to make a sustainable career with this stuff, you have to be willing to work your fucking ass off. Like, there's nothing easy about it.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never been in the psychological trap of working for somebody else, I can't really explain to you how liberating it can be working for yourself, even though it's more difficult. Like I said, I've held a job since I was 13 working for somebody, and most of my like real professional career, I was making like real money, has been either in the startup software world or something that's been acquired and kind of grown in like bigger conglomerate. Like my final days were with Verizon Media, not Verizon Wireless, like the media conglomerate that owned AOL, owned Yahoo, it's like I was a part of like a massive fucking machine. And like the psychology in that is things you work, and maybe it works hard, maybe it's not so hard, whatever. You work and so much is given to you as a reward, and you don't have to think about it. Healthcare, 401k, stock plans, bonuses, fucking corporate expenditures, cell phones, like fucking mileage in just travel funds. Like just so much is given to you to execute on something that might even take a fraction of the work ethic if you're just trying to fucking hustle your ass off as a self-employed person. So like the psychology in that, if you don't understand what it's going to take to break free from that, that's like the first thing to become successful for yourself. And I'm not saying I'm like wildly successful. I'm maintaining. I'm not hurting, but I've also made decent financial decisions throughout my life. I haven't made dumb choices. So first off, you have to deal with the psychological concept of shit ain't easy. And it can be much more rewarding for it to be harder, and you're just doing it for yourself rather than somebody else, right? You're not in the rat race, so to speak. Kind of. Then the second thing is like learn fundamentals of like business. Like let your money work to your advantage. Like I'm making music. One of the fucking hardest things financially is like wanting to buy gear. Like want to buy synthesizers and cool shit and all this stuff. And it's like it furthers my music, but like me spending $1,500 on a synthesizer, is that really going to come back to me in my music? Like that particular thing, is it going to make me a $1,500 song? Like maybe not, But when you don't look at it like that, like, oh, it's this toy or it's this shiny thing that I want to have, but rather you start to put more practicality into it and you say, is this going to be something useful? And if it is, let me make the investment and let me be smart about how that manifests itself in my expenditures. You write the shit off. You figure out like how to make sure that what you do all revolves around that business. My mileage, you write things off. You buy this, you write things off. You're going to go and do this. Does that fit in with your business? Maybe that's the decision you make, even though it's going to cost you money and you're like, fuck, I can't really afford it. Well, if that really fits with your business and it's something that you can write off and it becomes an expenditure, a part of like, you have to invest in yourself in those ways. And like, I think to be successful, you have to understand that stuff. You can't just like, you can't treat what you do when you're on your own like you would if you're working for somebody else.
There's no, you're off the clock. It's always
Exactly.
on.
Exactly. It's always on. Depending on who you are, how you are, and what your mental health capacity is, maybe you have to make time for yourself that's like off the clock, but you're not off the clock because you don't fucking punch. You there is no clock.
It becomes your life. The lifestyle,
it's your lifestyle. Right. So
what about revenue streams? Let's say for someone new that's starting, like
in music.
Yeah, music. So music is very broad, as far as like, is there any music and royalty-free music, stock music, right? Or being a ghost producer or being an audio engineer? Like, how does someone? Because I think that the high-paying gigs or the gigs in itself comes much further on, like could be years down the road, right? How does someone transition from where they are at now to that point? Is it getting like an audio engineering background so you have more consistent work to maintain the artistry?
So I don't think anybody.
Or is it the classic work a 9 to 5 and then practice and then get better on your own time and then keep pursuing the artistry until there's enough leverage to make the jump?
Yeah, I think you have two options, and I could be naive. I'm obviously not the most successful person, but in 10 years I might have more insight. But you have two options. Be extremely lucky in the hand that you're dealt, and you have somebody that can mentor you and put you in a position where you can be successful. Like they introduce you to the right people, they give you the right opportunities, and you work your ass off. And it doesn't change like how hard you probably have to work. But if you're like, it's like, if you're trying to work for yourself and here's the pool, this is the deep end, this is the one, like the steps that you can walk in and kind of like wade your way out to swim to the deep end. Like to jump into the deep end, somebody's got to be there for you to jump into the deep end. Like you don't just start in it. There's no fucking way. Like, not that I know of. Like you're, when you have no skill and you have nothing to offer, nobody's going to find value in that to pay you.
Yeah, right.
So that's just how it is in the world with anything. The arts are no different, in my opinion, right? You might be like God's gift to something, but you still have to be able to work towards defining a value that somebody can see. And then there's like, the shallow end where you kind of walk in, where it's like, I think what you described is perfect. Like fucking work and work on both. Guess what? That means you might have to work a 40-hour job and work an additional 20 hours a week on your own shit. Guess what? I've fucking been working since I was 13. But 13 to 18, 13 to 17, I could only work 20 hours a week in the state of California. I worked 20 hours a week, most weeks. And I danced from, in studio that my mother was paying for, or I would sometimes have to pay for, depending on what age I was. When I got older, I started paying for like most of my shit. But from 13, 14-ish until 17, 18, I danced probably in the ballpark of like 10 hours a week in studio, probably another like 4 to 5 hours out of studio, at least. That I'm just like averaging, right? But it's like I'm going to school, working almost 20 hours a week most of the time, and dancing at least 10 to 12 hours a week, studying in any kind of form or fashion, in any of those things, right? So it's like I'm doing that my whole life. When I'm no longer in school, my dad came home one day when I was living with my parents still. He came home and it was like 3 p.m. And my dad had more or less retired at this time. I was in junior college. And he was like, "What are you doing home?" I'm like, "I'm off class." He's like, "You got work?" And at this time I was contracting, doing some like web development stuff, very remedial, but I was taking contracts. And when I say taking contracts and like working for myself, I was already learning how to work, like be my own business. And this is something that Vid taught me. But like I was taking contracts, but I was also working for JCPenney's at the time, like doing credit and catalog, like really remedial retail shit, right? I was like, "Oh," he's like, "You don't got work today?" I'm like, "No, I'm not scheduled." He's like, "Oh, so you're done with school and you don't have work?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "What you going to do?" I was like, "Well, tonight we have practice. I'm going to go practice with Flowology." I was like, "I'm going to go practice," and we had a gig that weekend. I was working as a dancer too. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to go to rehearsal." And he's like, "Yeah, but I mean, it's a lot of downtime." He's like, because it was like, I think it was like a fucking Tuesday or something. You know what I mean? It was like middle of the week. And he just was like, he was just tripping that I didn't have anything to do. And he basically kind of like encouraged me like, yeah, you should try to add more credits to school. Like at the time I was actually taking the most credits I could. So it was like, there wasn't really much I could do. It was like, I couldn't add, maybe I could get another job, but it was like, it wasn't like he was like, "You need to do more." It was more of like, he was just astonished that I had these things going on in my life. Yet there was still like this time when in his mind, cause he didn't go to school, in his mind, it's kind of like, no, you go and you get that done. And then you go on to like the work life and whatever else you're going to do. You work, and then when your time off, you go and dance or whatever. So it was like, it was hard for him to comprehend that I was graduated from high school, in college, but I wasn't still like on this constant grind. Like there was dead time. And I remember like, I remember that feeling being like this like hardcore lesson for me. And it's something that I continue to carry, where it's like time not doing stuff is very valuable, you know, but to be successful, like you have to live a lifestyle of what that's going to be. And like, I've dedicated myself to that. Like I need more money to live, especially in the Bay Area, than what.
Oh yes, the truer statements have never been said.
especially doing the in the arts. In the arts, I need more money than the arts with my skill and my popularity, what it's able to provide me right now. So so these other businesses that I work in are like a means of like not taking the arts away from me to continue to work in the arts, but rather they help supplement the work that I do in the arts, right? Like I do a lot of mixing and mastering. I enjoy mixing and mastering, especially as of like the last couple of years. I really enjoy mastering, and I like working on music that I like. But guess what? I got to work on a lot of music that I think sucks, you know? And I got to be on these people's teams. Like not be a fake motherfucker, but like I need to help them get the best thing that they can get, because they may be just like me, you know, like they just need something that, you know, this resource or whatever. It's like, imagine me taking a song to this pianist because I need him to like take my idea and make this killer performance. And he's like, this fucking sucks. You know what I mean? Like, of course, I'm sure I've ran into musicians that won't tell me, you know, they just want, like, if a musician doesn't go, oh man, this is fucking killer, great job, I just assume they don't like it and they're just being paid, you know? Like, I just assume they're just being paid. They're doing a job. So like, I have to do other things to offset this still, but I get to work for myself. And most of these things I make sure that they complement it. If I have a gig coming up, somebody calls me, go play in some state, you know, go DJ or go be a part of something, like, of course I'm going to make that a priority to help further that career as much as I can, you know?
Do you think